What if I told you that Lewis Hamilton, in the middle of 2025, could have found the key that transforms Ferrari of a frustrated promise to a real contender? All thanks to an unexpected discovery in Monaco. The discovery that Lewis Hamilton made after the Miami Grand Prix was not the result of chance or a mere heart. It was a meticulous, almost obsessive technical analysis and simulation process that was developed within Ferrari's operational nucleus in Maranello. For weeks, while the spotlights of the championship pointed to other protagonists, Hamilton dedicated himself to working tirelessly in the simulator, repeating back after virtual return, in a silent search to understand the unstable nature of SF-25. This dedication led him to identify a technical anomaly that went unnoticed even for the most experienced engineers of the team. The key was how the car managed the vertical aerodynamic load. Unlike other cars that distributed this load more uniform along the chassis, the SF-25 concentrated its forces in a specific region, unpredictably altering the aerodynamic pressure point when the car entered slow curves. This phenomenon, far from being an absolute defect, was actually a camouflaged virtue under the appearance of instability. In the circuits with high-speed curves, this particularity made the car difficult to control, but in an environment like Monaco, where agility and low-speed response are decisive, this same characteristic offered an outstanding traction and directional control that no other car seemed to have. The most surprising thing was how Hamilton crossed these findings with historical data. He compared the behavior of the SF-25 with cars from previous seasons that had been particularly successful in Monaco and found notable similarities, especially with the SF-24 that dominated the Principality in 2024. This comparison was what led him to propose, with technical conviction, that Ferrari would recover part of that old configuration. Not like a step back, but as a recovery of a winning formula that the design of the SF-25, without knowing it, had inherited in its DNA. In internal conversations, Hamilton argued that it was not about adapting the car to his driving style, but about revealing the circuit style to which the car, by involuntary design, was naturally adapted. This change of perspective was revolutionary within the technical team. Ferrari's address, hearing Hamilton's arguments supported by data and simulations, understood that they were not facing a simple improvement of setup, but in front of a complete reinterpretation of the potential of the car. It was then that the rear wing reintroduction of the SF-24 was approved, specifically designed for low-speed circuits, marking the start of a new development phase focused on maximizing what until now seemed to be a weakness of the SF-25. This unexpected discovery of Hamilton not only modified the strategy for the Monaco GP, but also transformed the internal perception of the entire technical project of the team. What was seen as an uphill season began to emerge as a redemption campaign, with Monaco as a starting point and Lewis as the architect of a possible technical and competitive rebirth. Ferrari's reaction to Hamilton's technical discovery was, in many ways, one of the boldest decisions of the season. It is not common for a team with the historical magnitude and symbolic burden of Ferrari implicitly admit that part of its recent development had to revise solutions from the past. However, this is precisely what they did when deciding to recover the rear wing of the SF-24, a piece that had been fundamental in the victory of Charles Leclerc in the same Monaco circuit a year earlier. This rear wing, at the time, was designed with a very clear philosophy: maximize aerodynamic load in low-speed conditions. Unlike the most modern aerodynamic components of the SF-25, focused on equilibrium along different types of path, this piece of SF-24 prioritized the pressure generation towards the rear axle of the car, offering greater stability in short breaks and traction in curve outputs, exactly what is needed to survive and highlight in a circuit like Monaco. In a layout where there is no space for errors and where accelerations from low speeds are constant, this type of configuration can be the difference between fighting for pole or being trapped in the middle of the platoon. The technical process behind this decision was not simply to mount one wing of another car. It was necessary to redesign certain components of the rear suspension of the SF-25 so that they could work in tune with the distribution of flows generated by this new/old wing. In addition, the flat background and diffuser settings were redesigned to adapt the general aerodynamic balance of the car to this new load on the rear axle. This re-engineering, made to counter-relish, involved multiple departments within the factory in Maranello, from aerodynamics to simulation and quality control. The level of detail and synchronization required reflected not only the complexity of change, but the faith that the team deposited in the Hamilton trial. The most revealing of this whole movement was the change of mentality within the team. Until that time, Ferrari had opted for his new aerodynamic concept with the SF-25, trying to rival McLaren's extreme efficiency and Mercedes in high-speed circuits. But Hamilton's analysis changed the approach. It was not about competing in all lands with the same weapons, but about identifying and exploiting those battles where the car could become the best. In that context, Monaco became the perfect test field for a new strategy: adapt the car to the specific strengths of each circuit, although that meant recovering solutions from the past. In addition, internally, this decision also consolidated the figure of Hamilton not only as a pilot, but as a technical leader. Its ability to diagnose a deep problem, support it with data and propose a structural solution, positioned it as a reference figure within the team. His engineers began listening to him with renewed attention. Simulation data confirmed their predictions. And more importantly, the first track tests carried out in the training prior to the Monaco GP began to show promising results. Greater curve stability, less degradation of the tires, and an improvement in the confidence of the pilots by attacking urban pianos. What began as a tactical review of a car element ended up evolving in a strategic rethinking of Ferrari's technical approach. For the first time in a long time, the Italian team not only reacted to what the other teams did, but marked their own technical guideline. Monaco was not just one more career in the calendar. It had become the stage of a silent revolution, woven between data, bold decisions, and the experience of a champion that still has much to demonstrate. Monaco traditionally does not forgive mistakes. Its narrowness, its lack of exhaust areas, and the surgical precision that it demands make the urban layout into a unique test within the Formula One. Calendar is a circuit that is not one with pure power or with overtaking strategies, but with absolute control, constant rhythm, and above all, a car that transmits millimeter confidence to the pilot. In that context, the transformation of SF-25 thanks to Hamilton's discovery can have deep implications, not only for this race, but for the rest of the championship. With the rear wing of the reimbursement SF-24 and the technical adjustments implemented to maximize the behavior in slow curve, the SF-25 ceases to be an inconsistent car to become a perfectly adapted machine to the demands of the Principality. This not only improves its chronometric performance, but also raises an intangible but vital factor: the moral of the team. For the first time in the season, Ferrari arrives at a Grand Prix with a proactive strategy, with a clear competitive advantage, and with a technical leader who has shown to better understand than anyone else the peculiarities of the car. This combination of factors completely changes the tone of the weekend. If Hamilton manages to execute a good absolute classification in Monaco, where 80% of the victories come from those who start from the first row, the podium or victory possibilities are real. Moreover, a Hamilton victory in Monaco would have a huge symbolic weight. It would be his first great triumph with Ferrari in the circuit where Ayrton Senna wrote a good part of his legend, and would mean a clear message to his rivals. He is not in Ferrari only to close his career with nostalgia, but to write a new competitive chapter. The redemption narrative would be impossible to ignore. The most laureate pilot of his generation finding a new top just when many began to doubt their ability to reinvent themselves. But beyond personal triumph, the strategic impact of a good result in Monaco could modify the course of the championship. Ferrari has begun the season in the shadow of McLaren and Mercedes, with Red Bull trying to recover ground after an erratic start and plagued internal changes. If Hamilton gets a victory or even a solid podium, not only will you add vital points personally and in the Constructors' Championship, but also modify the psychology of the rivals. Seeing a competitive Ferrari in a technical circuit, with own solutions and clear leadership, would force the other teams to rethink their technical approaches. Monaco could become the turning point of the 2025 season. In addition, the learning extracted by Ferrari in this process, the deep understanding of how to adapt its aerodynamic packages to specific characteristics of each circuit could be replicated in similar paths such as Hungary or Singapore. In this way, what begins as an isolated victory could become a trend. A new operational model based on technical flexibility, rigorous analysis, and precise reading of the behavior of the car. In this new paradigm, Hamilton is not only an executor on the track, but the intellectual motor that activates this internal reconfiguration. What can change in Monaco is not simply the name of the winner of a career. It is the general perception of the championship, the balance of technical power between the teams, and the symbolic status of a pilot who has managed to find light amid the shadows. Formula One, as always, reinvents itself not in the big ads but in the details. And in Monaco, every detail counts as if it were a finish line. Upon reaching the end of this technical and emotional story, it is impossible not to stop to reflect on the real weight that this Hamilton discovery can have in the future of the championship. It is not just a redesigned aerodynamic piece, or a simple improvement in car behavior in a unique circuit. What is being developed here is a philosophical change within Ferrari, and possibly within the entire Formula One. A change where experience, the intuition of a champion, and the deep technical analysis converge to produce real, tangible, and disruptive advance. Lewis Hamilton has gone from being a media incorporation to becoming an internal transformation vector for Ferrari. His observations have motivated an entire team to re-examine their approach, to recover ideas that seemed filed and adopt a much more adaptable mentality. This is the essence of evolution in Formula One. Not only speed in line, but the ability to rethink, to adjust in real time, to change the paradigm when others are barely reacting. And if this materializes with a historical result in Monaco, then Hamilton is claimed, Ferrari's strategic power is redefined. This is where you enter, that you are seeing this analysis. Do you think this discovery marks the beginning of a real rebirth for Ferrari and Hamilton? Is Monaco the beginning of something big, or will it be just a technical mirage that cannot be replicated in other paths? Your opinion is a crucial part of this conversation. Share in the comments how you see the immediate future of Ferrari. Are we facing an engineering and piloting master play, or in front of a passing illusion caused by a very particular circuit? And if it has been interesting, subscribe, activate notifications.